Do it. And we are live. Welcome to the NBA Deeper Dive. It is Thursday, October 24th. I'm Josh Engleman. And once again, we're going to have some fun. I'm joined by Chris Spags. Chris Spags, ladies and gentlemen, what's going on?
Excited to be here again. I'm so excited. My emotions flowing through me right before the stream to see Josh and Jordan one more time. But no, it's honestly a nicer slate. I feel like we got a few more games to go on here to dig into on a Thursday. Some late breaking news items that matter more for this slate than it seems like. So everything you could ever want. And Josh, you here with me as the driving the ship. Man, how does it get any better than this?
I am the ultimate captain. I'm the captain now.
Look you right in those eyes.
I can't steer any ships. I am not a sea creature. I don't do well on the water. It will make me throw up, as it did in Ireland months ago.
Did you take any Dramamine or anything for that?
Oh yeah.
Oh, all right. And you still threw up. That's tough.
So we go out on this boat. So we're doing like this sightseeing tour off of I don't know where the hell in Ireland. And they take us out into this like side section of the water, and they're like, all right, it's gonna be a little choppy. We're going to stop here. And if you're okay, great. If not, let us know. We're still right by the shore. We just go drop you off and then we go back out. So we get to that choppy section. I was like, oh, this isn't bad. Like, this is no different than like intercoastal waters. Like, I'll be able to handle this on Dramamine. Maybe it sucks at the end. We take like two people back. We go back out to that spot and then we go around this corner to start the tour. And the moment we go around the corner, it is like 1000x more choppy than it was wherever the hell we were. And I just looked at Katie and I was like, this is going to end poorly soon enough. Sure enough, 10, 15 minutes in, it's game over. I'm like, grab me the bucket. These Dutch ladies were sitting next to me. I was like, I'm going to need you guys to skedaddle right now. And then I just cleared everything out and just prayed that the tour would end. It was a beautiful tour. I actually have one of the pictures that I took before I got sick as my wallpaper on my computer, but I don't remember the final 45 minutes.
But it was like a clean puke. It's like you got it where it was supposed to go. It wasn't just like, whoa, like you're one of the puppets.
Oh, no, it wasn't going everywhere. I was able to control myself and stick it strictly in the tin bucket that they just had on a rope at the back of the bucket.
Chum bucket. Arr.
Yes, I filled it with quite a bit of chum. The water was cold. If it was even remotely swimmable in the clothes that I was wearing, I would have just jumped in the water and swam to shore and walked over this giant mountain just to get off of the boat, but I would have froze first.
That is one of those things that that happened to me on vacation, it would ruin the vacation for me. Like I'd be so triggered by my incompetency in that moment. But I'm not gonna say you're used to it, but I feel like you would handle it with a lot more class and be able to brush it off. Or I'd just be like, for days back, I can't believe I did that. That's embarrassing. I'm ashamed.
I pretty much knew it was coming, so like it didn't catch me off guard. That's not I knew that I would get sick. I assumed I would get sick on it, and that was sort of like the final test. All right, I've killed enough time. You know what's the only thing worse than throwing up on a boat is playing for the Washington Wizards, and they are taking on the Boston Celtics today. They are 2-touchdown underdogs at home to open their season, 233 total. We'll start on the Boston side because that's a team that's way more fun to talk about. And just before we went live, we got some news. Sam Hauser is going to be out today. So that does change the scope a little bit of the Boston Celtics. Not a ton, but a little bit. He's obviously a firm part of the rotation. We have 49% ownership coming into Jason Tatum right now on DK, 41 on FanDuel. And then it's really thin on DraftKings for everybody else. 10 to Jaylen Brown, 18 to Derek White, 17 to Drew Holiday, 18 to Horford, 19 to Pritchard. This was all pre-Hauser, by the way, so these might wiggle a little bit. FanDuel is completely different because the pricing's different. 30+% ownership on Jaylen Brown and around 25 on Derek White, Drew Holiday, and Peyton Pritchard. How are you handling Boston on DraftKings tonight?
I mean, you see the ownership going Tatum's way, the big game coming off of that. It's so dumb too. It drives me nuts. Like people's narrative where, oh, he forgot how to shoot over the summer, but don't worry, he fixed it. He just probably ran really well in one game and he's still the same player he always was. That said, the narrative is going to drive the ownership a little bit here along with a good projection at that price tag. I think trying to get away from Tatum appeals to me. I'm running my sim right now to see if I'm going to be getting anything uniquely different, but Jaylen Brown in these kind of slates, I feel like always interesting because you have that direct countermeasure against them. Projection, not that great. Salary, not that great, but I think that's what's going to make a compelling play from at about 10% projected ownership right now. Besides that, though, Derek White always looks pretty good to me, especially when we have one of the other Celtics out, like Porzingis is going to be for the near future. The price, I feel like, not fully reflecting him. And Drew Holiday, I don't get a lot of, but actually have him projecting decently today, too. So if you're going to make the case to not go to Tatum, I think taking 1-2 Celtics that aren't him be a logical thing to do. But obviously, the decision point is like Tatum, and then what do you do off of that?
That's sort of what I'm doing right now on FanDuel, and the price tag it has a lot to do with it. Like Tatum's still getting 40% ownership on FanDuel. He's 10,100 today. That's $800 more expensive than DK. So I'm actually fading Tatum. I'm over the field on Brown. I'm over the field on White. I'm over the field on Drew. I'm over the field on Peyton Pritchard. So I'm kind of taking in all of the Celtics except for Tatum's stance on FanDuel. And I don't really mind that at 10-1. It's allowing me to get more Luka. It's allowing me to get more Nikola Jokic. And I would rather have those two guys than Jason Tatum.
But so I just ran a sim, and I assume this is the change from Hauser being out in real time. Carlton Carrington is coming up an incredible amount in the sim I just ran. I got him 84% of lineups.
That's probably a little bit of a quirk right now, but he is 37% owned on DraftKings. Bob Carrington, flat 3K on the Washington side.
Oh, that's
point guard,
Bob.
shooting
That
guard.
makes more sense. I'm like, who is Carlton? That really threw me for a loop. It's like, is this a Boston player I'm getting now because of mid salary? But no, that makes more sense. Okay, never mind. I was alarmed to see that in the sim.
All right, I kind of did this on a projections call on the back end earlier today. So we're gonna do this quickly, and I'm really curious what your second answer ends up being. Most prominent Carlton. Go.
Fresh Prince.
Okay, that agreed. Second.
Oh, isn't there a baseball player, Ernie Carlton? Isn't there? I don't know. Who else would it be?
The baseball player you're looking for is Carlton Fisk.
Oh, okay, that guy. Yeah, there we go.
Not Ernie Carlton,
okay,
who is certainly a made-up human being.
No, that's like one of those classic baseball player names where it could have been a created character in a 90s high heat sim on an MLB or on a PC out there, or it could have been a guy that was probably a racist.
It's like Barry Bonds' made-up name in Triple Play or something.
Yeah.
John Dowd. Okay, the guru, Steve Carlton. That's good too. Maybe that's
Steve, that's what I was thinking of. Steve Carlton.
Yeah, I think he went by Ernie from time to time.
It's Ernie Steve. That's what his friends would call him.
So no one else has given me one because everybody's staying in sports. Carlton Cuse, who was one of the co-people on Lost. Yes.
Yeah. That's a good one. That's not one of the ones that would come to mind. I feel like Lindelof took all the credit, but Carlton Cuse had a good run. Did Carlton Cuse did the Watchmen show too, or was that Lindelof as well?
I don't remember. They've both done a couple things, and it starts to blur together on which one's which.
I think they've had good careers, except they tried to do that one movie where, like, what was it, like slavery never went away or something. They tried to do something that was like really controversial. And they're like, you can't do this. And that was their bridge too far. But besides that, I think they've done good content.
They're not the guys that should have that particular passion project.
Probably not, but hey, passions are passions.
They are. All right. Let's circle back a little bit on Boston. Do you want to do anything with Cornette or Tillman?
Cornette and Tillman, I would say not priority plays by any stretch. Projection wise, for me, not looking the strongest either. Cornette, I could see working here. I'm still importing my sim stuff because I have some sheet things I have to overhaul from the year, as Josh will know, I'm sure. Excel, when anything changes, it all gets broken, and I got to figure that out. But these guys, to me, I don't think it's a slate like yesterday where we need the cheap center quite as much. So they're not coming up very much for me. The ownership doesn't seem like it's there, so I don't feel like I'm missing out on much.
I don't think that Hauser being out unlocks Jordan Walsh or Jaden Springer unless this game goes so bananas that they get like a real rotation early and then like the entire fourth quarter. And that's a conversation for a different day. If that's a path you want to go, feel free to go for it. But yeah, as I look at it, like Tatum looks great on DraftKings. I completely agree with that ownership. I do think that just about everybody else for Boston looks the same in the way that the ownership does. Like, all these guys have basically 5.0 or 5.1 fantasy point per dollar ratings, which is like the same dude up and down the line. So I'm having a lot of trouble separating them on the DK side. But for you FanDuel crazies, if you want to join me, it appears I'm going to be very light on Jason Tatum. And that's definitely the stance you wanted to take against the Knicks. You ready to do this?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's some options here.
There are options. They do have players. That is a thing. So their ownership is a real treat. I'm gonna refresh our page quick just to see if we have an updated ownership before I get into this. We do, 4 minutes ago. Okay, so let me toss that in here because talking about the Wizards is a thing we have to do. So on DraftKings, only two guys are getting any ownership. That's Bob Carrington, flat 3K, which is the incorrect price tag for him. Point guard, shooting guard eligible, rookie lottery pick for the Wizards. He's 38% owned. And then Bilal Coulibaly is 16% owned, shooting guard, small forward, and for some strange reason, 4,200. He is $1,200 more expensive on FanDuel today. So let's start here. How do you feel about the Bob Carrington chalk? How do you feel about the Coulibaly ownership? And do you want to get to any other Wizards?
I honestly think the Bub chalk, now that we know that he is in fact Carlton, that's been solved for me. I think I feel a little bit better about it. We saw yesterday what a minimum salary player can do for a lineup. Obviously, a bigger slate there. It still ends up having Yabusele end up making the winning team on yesterday's slate, obviously, because the minimum salary opens up so many things. Multi-position eligibility opens up so many things. So with the lessons learned there, that's going to apply for every slate. I would say that Carrington's probably a good play, maybe too good of a play according to the sim. But, again, a guy coming in with some draft capital behind him. Not that the NBA is a perfect one-to-one with the NFL, but, that stuff does matter a little bit here. Usage still worries me a little bit when you have Kuzma and Poole, and then you also have J-Val coming in the mix there and definitely sucking up whatever rebounds that are available and definitely taking some usage off the table. But at minimum salary, again, it's not the right price tag. I get why he's coming up a lot. It's just, if you don't play him, I'm not going to begrudge it. Like we talked about the centers yesterday, kind of the same
The
thing.
Gershon Yabusele of Thursday.
Yeah, but it is like closer to him than it is, Nick Richards or the guys that we had yesterday. It's Chalk or Brandon Clark, who I think we kind of, I poo-pooed a little bit. I think we both were on the same page there. It's just the minimum salary part was really the whole thing. Again, the guy's going to get minutes.
Yes, he is. Yeah, Washington has no incentive to do anything other than try to see if their young guys are any good because they are playing for nothing. Kuzma, Jordan Poole, they are the two real names on Washington, as much as they can have real names. Their ownership on DraftKings doesn't really exist. It is a slightly different story on FanDuel, however, where Jordan Poole is $900 cheaper and 52% owned, the highest owned player on FanDuel. Kyle Kuzma's pulling 12% there, and Alex Sarr, who is 1% owned on DraftKings at 6K, is 34% owned on FanDuel at 5K. What do you want to do with Kuzma and Poole on DK?
DK, I don't really see it very much. Certainly tournament options, if they're somehow going to stay in the game. And hang in with Boston throughout, it would probably have to come from Kuzma, Poole, or I guess could also be our pal Carlton Carrington if we need to. But I think for these guys here, like the price tags on DK are really aggressive in a way where sim-wise didn't get either guy more than 3%. Ownership for both guys being, max of 5% for Poole. It seems like they're materially different plays on DraftKings versus FanDuel. And on DraftKings, I think if you're getting there, it's like because you played so many expensive Celtics, you have to justify playing those guys. And the way to do that would be the push-pull of Washington staying competitive with Kuzma and Poole.
I'm aggressively fading Poole on FanDuel. I'm very happy about that. I understand that he looks decent today. I hate this spot. He's got a death sentence matchup. I expect Boston to crush them. I think it's the downside in Jordan Poole's minutes is there's a lot of it. So I'm going to happily run away from that ownership. I'm also happily running away from the Sarr ownership. He does make me a little bit nervous because his minutes don't have to be impacted. If they want to just give him blowout run because he's a guy that needs more time, then they might do that and he might not be impacted at all. I just assume super ultra raw rookies are going to be bad. And when they're playing the defending champs that just kick the shit out of the Knicks, I'm not as optimistic about Sarr's potential in game one here. So I am aggressively fading Sarr as well. The only guy that I'm really getting to from Washington at all is a little bit of Bob Carrington on FanDuel. And I have 10% of Poole compared to the 52 that he's owned. But I don't want much of Washington, and I'm not mad about that. There's no one on Washington on FanDuel that has the same sort of ridiculous pricing like Carrington, where it's he's the flat min and he's playing. You got to get there. I don't look at Jordan Poole that same way.
Yeah, and Carrington too, like, talking about the blowout build, again, a huge spread, 14-point spread. If you ever bring Boston on the road, so that does sort of scream. The expectation here is like a legit blowout with probably without fourth quarter run. Would think Carrington gets there in that terms of run as well. Sarr, it's just like, I don't know. Summer League maybe threw me off a little bit. I didn't love his advanced stats either from playing internationally, but like, I just don't know what he offers. Like, he was trying to shoot in the preseason and in Summer League, and it's like, it doesn't go well. FanDuel, maybe you're missing out on some blocks and all that. So I could see there being a little bit more upside there, but I wouldn't play Sarr. Like, you're not missing out on not playing Wemby on night one if you don't play Sarr. I feel like Carrington, at least there's a logic to it.
I don't think we have anybody else that we really need to touch on here. I don't think there's I don't think we have any like stones to overturn off the Wizards.
No,
I know we
yeah.
don't like to talk about blowouts, but like I've never felt more comfortable about a team getting beat by double digits today than Boston against Washington.
Yeah, it's hard to see how they could stay. Like, how do they even stay in this game? It would have to be like Kuzma and Poole going nuts. Maybe Kispert. Like, Kispert's got some positive buzz around him, shooting a little bit better, and maybe rounding into being Kyle Korver.
It has to just basically be like Boston shoots 20% from three, and no matter what Washington throws up, that shit just falls. Like the disparity in the disparity in field goal percentage has to be something staggering.
Yeah, that's hard to be a 14-point dog at home. That's not.
It is.
I
have the true line at 15.5, so I actually bet Boston giving the points.
Jesus, we're Washington.
Yeah. Well, what's better than Boston and Washington is our schedule for the rest of the day. NBA Live Before Lock is coming up next. You don't have to leave this stream at all. From 6 until 7, these guys will break down any news that pops up and take you up to 7 o'clock. But we don't stop there. No playback today. We'll have the stream running so you guys can watch games on the playback channel. But we have NFL tonight. There is Thursday night football. We'll have NFL Live Before Lock at 7:15, I'm guessing. Is that yes? 7:15. So take a bathroom break when this show ends. Go get yourself a water. Get your lineups in for NBA. Take a couple minutes. Come back at 7:15. Lofty and Greg will take you all the way up until NFL lock. So multiple hours of coverage still to come on the Stokastic YouTube channel. Multiple like button presses still need to come in. We're at 1,000. We have about 100. Remember, the goal is 500 before we turn this one over to Live Before Lock. The San Antonio Spurs make their debut today. 8.5-point dogs in Dallas, taking on the Mavs. Spurs are going to be without Devin Vassell in this one. Lots of ownership coming in, scattered depending on the site. 45% ownership coming into Jeremy Sohan, one of the highest owned guys on DraftKings. And then around 15 for Wemby, Chris Paul, and Julian Champagnie. On the FanDuel side, Wemby's 30% owned. Sohan's only 9 because he's $1,200 more expensive. And then Champagnie is actually 24% owned on FanDuel. What do you like on San Antonio? How are you handling Sohan?
So shockingly getting a lot of Sohan, getting 80% Sohan from the sim so far, which did not have time to kind of manipulate before the stream, but think that seems like a reasonable number with that salary. Get another guy, be nice to have the dual position eligibility or a little bit less salary on him to make it even sweeter. But do you think at that price point, he works pretty well? And the minutes too for him, the projection there, just shy of 29 minutes by Stokastic right now. I think that feels like a pretty good number for him too. So Sohan, I feel like is priority play. The upside play though is Wemby. I feel like especially if you're not going to play Tatum on the slate, Wemby would be the one I would want to go to the most. I've got about actually 2.5x the ownership right now via the sim I ran. Wemby's projection for me a little bit better than Stokastic as well. So I'm high on board. I've projected for 1.8 fantasy points per minute tonight, which feels aggressive, but kind of think it makes sense with the matchup, the opportunity, and frankly too, just better play around him. I worry about Harrison Barnes being a little bit of a suck on things based on what we saw in the preseason. Besides that, Chris Paul running a better offense, just feeding the ball. Feels like he's going to get alley-oops left and right. Like the rebounds, the blocks upside there, especially, I don't know the FanDuel price tag offhand, but I think that's going to make it more appealing there. I feel like Wemby is a play to me where I'd like to build my night around Wemby because I talk about with Tatum, everybody's already doing that already.
You said you have him at 1.8?
Yeah.
That's an outlandishly high projection. I have him at 1.78.
There we go. Well, I actually have 1.75. I was rounding up. I was careful with 1.8.
Okay, that's fair. I've got 1.8 then.
Yeah, so you're the one. You're the fool now.
Yes, I am. Like I have 37% of him on FanDuel. So with me not getting to as much Tatum, it's resulting in me getting more Wemby, more Luka, more Jokic. So like I'm not trading it off for something ridiculous. Like there's only so many pay ups you can get. You end up cutting one of them. Tatum happens to be the guy. If I have less Tatum and more Wemby, Luka, and Jokic, like that's just I gotta see where the chips fall at that point. The Sohan thing, I actually have him on the FanDuel side, even at the elevated price. He's sort of like a pay up to be contrarian guy there. Doesn't exactly make me feel great because I don't think he's very good, but it appears I'm taking that chance. And then we've got Julian Champagny, who is in 63% of my FanDuel lineups at this moment. Small forward eligibility, though, that's a big thing on FanDuel. You have to have two small forwards in your lineup, and on a 4-game slate, that just becomes a little bit more difficult to do. So you start grabbing that value of a guy that should play in the like 24 to 26 minute range. Are you seeing him as a value? I don't remember if you said anything.
Yeah, Champagne is not. I'm getting him less than the field, but 9% ownership on DraftKings, so I don't mind that. Yeah, I think he's an okay enough play to open up some stuff again. The cheap price tag, small forward on DraftKings, maybe not as valuable. Small forward on FanDuel, but it still works well enough for me. Chris Paul's one, actually, I'm curious about your thoughts on too, because getting half the ownership for him on DraftKings, the sim I ran, I feel like the rate data, and it's something too that I think, at least with my projections, could affect Sohan a little bit, where Chris Paul, I think, gets more assists. Sohan, I don't think, has that same role for at least part of last year. He's playing that kind of bootleg point guard role. I worry that that's kind of a push-pull dynamic I'm not accounting for this initial run here, but how are you feeling about Chris Paul with the numbers he's got on him?
He looks way better on DraftKings. So he's 5,900 on DK, 6,600 on FanDuel. So I'm not really getting too much on the FanDuel side, but I think he looks a lot better on the DraftKings end. I have him in for 28 minutes, 10 points, 7 assists. He should be fine. I'd be like, I think the 18% ownership that he has is like around his optimal rate. I'm intrigued by the pace of the Spurs. This whole team is more of like an up-tempo affair, except for Harrison Barnes, who's a little bit more on the Chris Paul side. But everybody else is sort of like 100 possessions per one, or is like 100 pace type dude, and Chris Paul's more like a 97 guy. So I'm curious if he slows down the Spurs a little bit more. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I'm really curious to see how he impacts the pace of the Spurs, since he should sort of be the driving force of speed for their offense.
That's a good call, because he definitely can change the way they play a little bit more, but make a more efficient kind of thing would be the
Yeah,
hope. But
maybe. Could be. They're a weird team, man. They're extra special bad outside of Wemby. That dude is amazing, and he has such a very tiny amount of help right now, especially with Devin Vassell out. It does never helpful when the second best player of your team is out for opening day. Then we get to Dallas. Luka Doncic, $11,100 on DraftKings, 11,900 on FanDuel. Kyrie is 7,500 on DK, 41% owned. He's 8,100 on FanDuel, 44% owned. How do you want to handle Luka and Kyrie?
Getting a good amount of these guys, less than the field on Kyrie, more than the field on Luka, which I'm okay with. Hey, my child's name Luka. How could that go wrong? But I think besides that, like the Mavs actually look like a team I'm getting a lot of pieces of. PJ Washington coming in a good amount as well for me. Gafford, I guess, and I would hopefully in lineups without Washington, getting him a little bit more. Those guys work, not getting Klay Thompson very much, but I think Luka goes more with the anti-Tatum thesis that I guess seems to be the theme of the show for me, which sucks. Like Tatum's running hot now. He's going to he's going to put up another monster day against Washington. It would not be a shocker at all. But with that much ownership, like we have guys here that Luka at 20% ownership, or I guess 28%. It's not that bad compared to Tatum by half the field. So obviously a little bit of a price tag difference as well. But I think just paying up for the Wembys, the Lukas, part of my approach. And for Kyrie, I'm surprised I'm not getting with the field on that, but I'm only getting 22% compared to the 41% expected by the field.
So I have 23% of Luka on FanDuel, so a little bit over the field. I am quite a bit lighter on Kyrie, though. He's, like I said, 44% owned. I only have 20. I don't mind that at all. 44% feels pretty high. Happy to have a little bit of them, though. There's some other guys that I'm taking stands on. The rest of Dallas, though, 20% ownership to PJ Washington, 20 to Derek Lively, 20 to Daniel Gafford. How are you hashing out the center situation?
So getting a good amount of Washington and Gafford, 30% of both, actually 33% of Washington, 32% of Gafford right now. Getting half of Derek Lively, it does feel like, normally if we were back in the fantasy cruncher days, I don't know, are we all let's say that name anymore. Now we're in a Sims modern era, a golden age here that we don't have to worry about the stuff. But I would feel like putting in groups, separating these guys out would be a thing that I would do naturally. Here with the Sims and how they work, there is that push pull in the lineups you're getting with them. So doesn't seem like I'm getting them a lot together, which is good. But I think having one of those guys in every lineup relative to the projections, the salary, and how they make other lineups work, I think that they're still players I want to have a good amount of. But I think putting them together feels kind of like a fool's errand, which wasn't exactly the case yesterday with Drummond and Koulibaly, or Yabusele, excuse me. But was a situation where like that was what I thought it would be. Kind of feel the same way here, where I can't imagine all three of these guys hitting, even if it is technically possible.
Yeah, I'm getting a little bit of PJ Washington on the FanDuel side. I'm only getting Lively, though. I have 23% of him at 9% ownership, which I actually really like. Derek Lively's $200 cheaper than Daniel Gafford on FanDuel. So to me, like, I don't even really see the path of getting to Gafford. In my mind, Lively starts, Lively closes. The only thing that's keeping him off the floor is foul trouble. And if that's the case, I'm just going to get myself some Derek Lively because I think they want him to be the dude. Every team should want Derek Lively to be better than Daniel Gafford.
So, like, how many minutes do you have those guys for right now?
26 for Lively, 21 for Gafford.
Okay, so you have the same thing as Stokastic then. Okay, so because like it does seem like the projection favoring, well, I guess Gafford only 0.1 difference for Stokastic. I have them about 0.8 difference, but it's close enough to me that I'm surprised that the sim is actually giving any more Gafford. I would think that naturally I would get a similar amount of guys, but I definitely am getting more Gafford from the sim right now.
Interesting. Yeah, on DraftKings, it looks a little bit better because Gafford has the $200 price savings there, not the 200 price increase.
Close though. They look like the exact same player, besides the motivation stuff that you mentioned.
Yeah. You Klay Thompson guy today? Making his Dallas debut?
I could buy the narrative. Like, I want to see Klay do well. This matchup would theoretically be a good one. You're going against a team in San Antonio that at least last year, pretty high, field goal percentage overall, 37% or 37.3% from three. So a little bit better than the Mavs themselves actually shot last year. So if Klay's going to get going, I think there's a reasonable spot to expect him to get going. Just like, what is the upside? I feel like the upside has to come entirely from his 3-pointers hitting at a pretty high clip. And look, I don't think he's going to score an insignificant amount of points. I've got him for 16.4. So that feels like an okay amount. But in terms of the entire picture at his salary, if he hits, I guess it wouldn't be the craziest thing in the world. But projection wise, I don't know how you really get there.
Yeah, I have 17% on FanDuel, but again, different plays across different sites. I mean, he is going to get some ridiculously good looks. He's going to create so much open space for Kyrie and Luka. Whether they crash on the help of Kyrie and Luka and we end up swinging to Klay or vice versa, it just creates space and those guys get to where they need to be. I think Klay is in for a really nice spot here in Dallas, especially in the regular season, because they can use him however they want to. They're not forced to have him be Klay Thompson of the Golden State Warriors, and you kind of have to like only do one thing with him. Like he can leave his like Golden State persona in the dust a little bit and can kind of, I don't know, be the older dude that isn't the same guy he used to be now.
Yeah, like, vintage Ray Allen, maybe that portion of the career, I think is there. The defense is going to be really bad for this team, though. Like, I don't know how they're going to stop anything. Obviously, rim protection should be there, but everything else is going to be, like, egregiously bad.
Yeah, I mean, Luka's not a very good defender. Kyrie is not a very good defender. Klay Thompson is terrible. PJ Washington is overrated for what they need him to do. I'm really curious what they're going to end up doing. I would not be surprised by the end of the season if Najee Marshall is closing. And I don't know if that's over Klay or over PJ Washington, but they're going to need somebody to guard the ball. It can't be Kyrie. It can't be Luka. And PJ Washington can't do it. So somebody's got to be out there to do it. I expect that to be Marshall when all is said and done.
Well, I don't know if you heard, Spencer Dinwiddie cares a lot about defense now, so he's gonna lock in.
Well, good luck, Spencer. I hope you could lock somebody down in your 12 minutes. Any Najee Marshall, Maxi Kleba, Quentin Grimes? Is there anything on Dallas that we haven't talked about that you want to talk about?
No, I just got the big men, got Luka, got Kyrie less in the field, and the smallest amount of Klay, but everything else feels like not projectable, really.
Rob Live hit us with the super chat. He said, "What up, doe guys? Question: what website can I find defense versus position and team pace?" I have no idea where you can find defense versus position because I would never look at it. Don't know where it is, and I don't believe that it is something that you should be looking at. Very, very, very cloudy data that is completely up to the whims of how people designate who is playing what position, which doesn't necessarily have a tie to DraftKings and FanDuel positions. Very cloudy data. Pace, anywhere there's stats, Basketball Reference, dunks and threes, Darko, anywhere you want to go. ESPN, I'm sure, has it. You can get pace anywhere.
Basketball Reference, the greatest asset you have. You could build an entire projection sets off of that, and that's the only site you use. I mean, there's a lot of great sites out there, but I feel like if you want to really embrace the data, like anytime there's a college player coming in or an international player, look up the advanced rates on Sports Reference or College Reference or whatever. It's the best site. I would say Basketball Reference for anything you want to do is probably the one to go to, and it's free. It's shocking.
Speaking of things that are awesome, we've got a hell of a promo right now for the NBA season. Tip-off 24 is the promo code. You can get our NBA core package for $1. And boy, oh boy, have you guys been getting that package so far. And I see no reason why you want to stop now. There's no risk to it. You'll get it for $1 until October 29th. If you hate it, cancel at any point in time. You're only out that buck. You get projections, ownership, boom bust, the single lineup simulator, the regular sims, the post-contest sims, the contest generator, access to our premium Discord. This is simple. It's an absolute no-brainer. If you're here and you're playing DFS, at the very least, you should be investing $1 to see what we have behind the scenes. Maybe you find out that you don't like it. That's fine. Maybe we're not for you. I think we will be. I think you'll be very impressed by the tools that you end up getting a chance to use. You can see plenty of testimonials on Twitter from yesterday of people that used this dollar promotion and have significantly more dollars in their account now and are going to be hanging around for a bit. That could be you. Put the avatar on your DraftKings or FanDuel account. You could play your way into another free month. You could stretch this out into a week and a month for $1, potentially. This is what you guys can be doing. Tipoff24 is the promo code. The link is in chat. There's also a link in the description. You want to sign up, you get it for $1 until October 29th. Don't sleep on it, folks, because eventually this deal is going to go away, and you're not going to get that good of a deal. So do it now.
Also, like, pat on the back for this show yesterday. The guy who won the FanDuel 100K gave us a tweet shout out this morning. Fow Wow. Has win, I guess, had a good run in MLB, so he wasn't, a cheap package user guy, but still had a big win there. I think he won like 3 tournaments with the lineups and the tools.
Yeah,
so.
I shipped 100K. I think Steve finished second in that one too. So
That's right, yeah.
double Stokastics.
People sent in the screenshot. It's like, oh, here's our pros doing also really well as well. But yeah, like really big wins for that guy. A lot of people doing well with it. Greg had a lot that were so close that got quick lead, unfortunately. So that really is the biggest testament. If you really, this time of year, especially where the data is flimsy in a lot of spots, Stokastic's data is not flimsy. We'll hopefully do some good stuff for you along with the tools.
All right, hit us with a super chat. I hate him for it. Tutu probably early. Tatum Horford or Lively Sabonis. I'm going to assume this is DraftKings. I mean, my first thought is Lively Sabonis.
Yeah, if for the tournament upside, I think it would be Lively Sabonis to get away from it. The projection play would probably be the first one.
Yeah. That's a perfect opportunity for you to head on over to Stokastic.com, browse to the Player Compare tool. This is a completely free tool to everybody that exists. You can go there right now, get 1v1s and 2v2s, see projections, boom ratings, bust ratings, optimal ratings, ownership. You can figure out exactly what you need with all of the data for whichever combination you're looking for. Or, even better, sign up using that Tipoff24 promo code and use our single lineup simulator to build out your lineup and test both of those combinations. Find out what the first combination looks like, then find out what the second combination looks like. You'll get sim ROI, projected win rate, how often does that lineup cash? All of that advanced data will be on the screen for you. So if you have 2v2s like that, all you have to do is just quickly sign up for the package for $1 and test them out yourself. Damn good. OKC and Denver, baby. Man, this could have been the game. If Isaiah Hartenstein was healthy for this, man, I'd be up until well after midnight watching this. Thunder are 2-point dogs in Denver, 227 total. As I mentioned, no Isaiah Hartenstein, no Jalen Williams with a Y, no Kenrich Williams. 30% ownership coming into the active Jalen Williams, 40 coming into Alex Caruso on DraftKings, and then around 15 for Shea and for Chet and for Aaron Wiggins. So I'm just going to throw it to you in general. OKC, what are you doing?
Getting a lot of the cheap Aaron Wiggins, more than I would like to. Getting 28% of him, field projected to be 16%. He's the kind of play where, again, I just ran the sim, didn't touch anything before the show, that I would probably want to mute down a little bit, or at least see the lineups that he's in to get a read for. But he does have a $3,400 price tag, small forward eligibility, which, as Josh mentioned, I realized that, like, I didn't think it was going to be as big of a deal on DraftKings, but it seems equally important on DraftKings and FanDuel
Yeah.
that you're getting a lot of crappy small forwards today, because there's not a lot of high upside plays there. Caruso looks like the best play of the group here. I think a strong projection on him, expectation of good minutes, playoffy kind of environment, which it does feel like Caruso sneaks his way up in minutes, with even a flat projection of 29.6 minutes feels pretty good for him. Shea, another Tatum pivot, I think also looks good. I think Holmgren, also an interesting turn at play, getting him less in the field, but I would probably bump his ROI up a little bit to get more. Low on Jalen Williams. That's the one that I feel the lowest on. Getting 31% ownership for the field there. I'm getting 12% with the sim. So that one, a little bit surprised. I have a good projection on him, and I think that might be more of a lineup build thing, where maybe that high 6 salary doesn't work quite as well on DraftKings, at least for the builds I got.
So right now I'm getting 3 guys on the FanDuel side. I think I said that I'm not playing DK tonight and just FanDuel, but in case I didn't, that's what's happening. 43% ownership right now coming into Alex Caruso. I have 53. He's 5,300 as well, but really like him, and I think he's good. 33% ownership coming into Jalen Williams. I have 27, so a little bit lighter, but nothing crazy. Still in like a third of my lineups. I mean, I love getting to Jalen Williams. The one guy I'm not getting to is Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, but there's a pretty good reason for it. He's 9,900 on DraftKings. That's a pretty reasonable price tag. He's 11,300 on FanDuel. I love Shea, and I got 3%. That's a really difficult price tag to get to with Jokic on the slate, with Luka on the slate, with Tatum on the slate. 11-3 is pretty cost prohibitive for Shea. Could he go crazy tonight? Yeah, absolutely. He's like one of the 5 best players in the league, but I think that price is a little high for fantasy purposes. Only other guy I'm getting to is 17% Dort. He is also 17% owned. Chet is 16% owned on FanDuel. I don't have a single share. I don't mind that too much. Weak side rebound or weak side blocks and stuff could be fun here, but Jokic can go right through him. So if they don't have the right sort of depth there today, it could get problematic. I trust OKC to have really good defensive schemes for it. Do you have any interest in Ousmane Dieng, who by all accounts is the only other big man on this team?
Don't think I got any shares here. I mean, I feel like the bet to me that makes the most sense would be, if Holmgren doesn't work out, they just go small and try to do something else, and probably lose in that way, which could be the wrong take to have here. But no, Dieng didn't come up much for me at all, so I don't think that's a play. But logically, I get the how and why of it. But I saw the projections. Let me see if I'm missing a little bit more. But I think that for that situation, I assume the projections were leading me more to believe that it's Chet or bust in terms of like trying out a big man out there.
Okay. Let's see. Anything else interesting here? I got a couple shares of Case and Wallace. Like the Aaron Wiggins, Case and Wallace, Isaiah Joe trio is going to be really hard to peg down on a day-to-day basis, because any one of those guys could work their way into a closing lineup. Like you can close any one of those guys over Caruso or over Dort, depending on the matchups, depending on who needs to be guarded on the opposite side. Are you trying to come from behind? Do you need like Isaiah Joe to try to get a little bit more floor spacing, give up a little bit more of that defense? Like I could see scenarios where Caruso closes and Joe closes over Dort if you don't need Dort's defense, but you want that floor spacing. So there's a lot of wiggle room for finding the Wiggins, Wallace, Joe trio interesting. Do you have a lean on any one of those 3 guys?
I think the lean for me, well, it would have to be Wiggins. I mean, Wiggins is coming up a lot here. I don't feel like he's an appreciably better play than these guys. Even minutes wise, it's like it's 21 minutes for Wiggins, 20.1 minutes for Joe. Like, I don't think there's a huge difference between that. But the permanent numbers for Wiggins being a little bit higher, I get why I'm getting there. Honestly, Wiggins is one of those plays where like I really don't feel great about it. It would have to be really great lineups around him for me to get the 28% exposure the sim is giving me right now. But I think based on the projections, it feels like Wiggins is a cut above, or relative to the sim at least.
You want to talk about Denver?
Yeah, I think it's a little more fun than the crappy parts of OKC.
We'll start with the man that matters most, the big man, Nikola Jokic. You see him next to Spags' head, 24% owned on DraftKings at 11K, 13% owned on FanDuel at 11.7. Now, it's not that ugly puppet.
You mean the beautiful puppet that once that made Eric Lindquist's career? Now he's a famous YouTube influencer who gets way too many views on his betting video. He's crazy. It's crazy how popular he is.
It is crazy.
In a good way.
Good for him. Good for him. It'd be cooler if he was the puppet, but it's neither here nor there.
Okay, well, that's a prank you could do at some point. The puppet could fill in. You know,
it would be really nice if Eric pulled a reverse Pinocchio and turned into a puppet.
Well, he's always stuffing stuff up there. It's bound to happen.
I mean, if anybody wants to have a hand in them at all times, it's definitely Eric Lindquist. 13% ownership coming in Nikola Jokic on the FanDuel side, 24 on DraftKings. I have 50. Give me all the Nikola Jokic I can get. What are you doing?
45% here. Competitive game environment looks good. Again, the whole thing of, and it sucks is like the more that I'm talking about it, I'm like, oh man, I'm making my bet really against Tatum with every single part of this, but it makes sense with the ownership Tatum has. I like this environment more, expect Oklahoma City to pull their weight more than I do Washington. Maybe that's how everybody's going to play the tournament tonight, and maybe Tatum's ownership is not going to be as high as it seems, but my expectation is one, again, Jokic being a great play in a competitive game, SGA, great play in a competitive game, Wemby, great play in a competitive game, Luka, great play in a competitive game. Those are the guys I want tonight. So yeah, Jokic for me, just under 50%, 45.3% in the sim, and he's my highest exposed nugget by a wide margin.
You and me both. You and me both. Call it 15% ownership for MPJ, Jamal Murray, Russell Westbrook, and Julian Strawther. Of those guys, are you taking big stands on any of them? Are you avoiding any of them? Is it Russ season for you?
Yeah, a little bit of taste with them with the field, it looks like sim-wise. So got 11% Murray, 11% rounded up of Porter, 10% of Westbrook, 12% of Strawther. So there being something here that makes the lineups work, I think seems like a reasonable one. And again, guys, in a competitive game, when you have one game that we expect has a pretty good shot of maybe not being competitive, not to project blowouts, but 14-point road favorite, good team, a little more likely there than some days. I think on the slate, like I get why Denver's coming up a lot more. They're not priorities like Jokic, but little bits of shares from these guys, evenly distributed. Maybe you can force your way to more Christian Brown just to get there and feel like you're getting a player who should be getting starter adjacent run. But he and Gordon are the ones not coming up at all, which make me think they're probably a little bit better tournament plays than the other guys.
All righty. So on the FanDuel side, the chalk play from Denver is actually Russell Westbrook. He is 38% owned today. I have 20. I could not be happier about that. If I lose because of Westbrook, I can handle it. I don't want to cheer for him, so I'm happy to have half the field. I get it. I was definitely too low on him on the strategy show. So if you watched that show earlier today, I'm definitely much higher on Westbrook than I was earlier. I was under projecting his minutes by a bit. The betting market let me know that I was incorrect, and I bumped them up a bit, but I am still not getting to the 40% here. I am getting 40% of someone, though, and that happens to be Aaron Gordon, $6,300 power forward, 14% owned on FanDuel. I don't really know what's driving that. I don't think that it's anything in particular. I think it's just sort of a function of the way these lineups are coming together. I have a little bit over the field of MPJ, a little under on Murray, which I'm happy about. He's looked like shit for months. And then a little bit under on Christian Brown. Not necessarily confident he's just the guy. Could be Strawther, could be Watson. So I'm getting to the guys that I'm like okay with. I don't mind having a little bit of Russ, but being under the field. I probably have a little bit too much Aaron Gordon, and that'll be something I'll hash out between 6 and 7. But I would like to maintain 50% of Nikola Jokic because taking the best player in basketball is usually a good idea. Hell, this time last year, I was fading him as like a 50% owned shot guy.
Funny how things are. Now Tatum's taking the mantle.
Yeah. Great.
How is Russ going to play, by the way? Like, what are they going to do with him? Like, what it's like, yeah, I trust Malone to do a good job coaching wise, figure out usage. Like, I feel like he's part of why Aaron Gordon's getting this next contract. Felt like he was going the wrong way, and now he's been salvaged. Can Russ be salvaged? Is there something here that he can tap into?
He'll be good as a backup, I think. He was fine for the Clippers. Yeah, you just can't let him look, just don't let him shoot threes, and like he's probably going to do most of the right stuff. As long as you avoid him shooting threes, you're fine. I mean, he's the worst three-point shooter in the history of basketball. Just take that shit out of his arsenal, let him push the ball in against second units and run it down their throat, and hopefully that works out. Just don't.
Do you care about true shooting as a metric? Because that's one of my like litmus tests for guys. I think are so. Do you know what Russ's true shooting was last year offhand?
I'll guess it was something in like the 30th percentile range. So I'll call it like 53.
51.4%, which my sheet is all color coded, pretty close to strong red for Russ, which to be that bad for a guy who drives to the hoop as often as he does is crazy.
Yeah. One thing I want people to know, because like true shooting is the best measure of skill. How are you efficiently turning shots into points? That is a very different conversation than DFS, which is a volume play against salary. So like I don't care how bad, like if Russ is 3K, he could have a 40% true shooting and we're not going to care as much because opportunity is what matters. So I want to make sure that's clear for everybody. I look at true shooting a lot. It lets me know that Russell Westbrook isn't a very good basketball player. But being very good and picking people for fantasy are two different things. Like Nick Richards isn't very good. I picked him for fantasy. He sucked.
Yeah. No, that's a good way to sum it up. Volume trumps everything. Unfortunately, football, same thing. Got football
Yeah.
slate coming up a little bit. That's the name of the game.
What'd you say? Volume trumps everything?
Yeah, everything.
Speaking of everything, if you would like to get 10% off our all access package, you can do that by using the promo code everything. Maybe you don't want to just dip your toe in the water for $1 for our NBA core package. Maybe you're a big fan of Stokastic and you play multiple DFS sports, NBA, NFL, PGA, NASCAR, MMA. I'm probably missing something else. Hockey. We have it all. And this promo code everything covers everything. You'll get 10% off our all access pass, but not just for a week or a month or for a year. As long as you maintain that package, you will have that 10% off. This is the perfect way to get in. If you know you're going to be sticking around for a while, you can save 10% in perpetuity as long as you don't cancel your subscription at any point in time. So come sign up using the promo code everything, link in chat or the description.
What a transition.
You know
Set
me, man.
Up. You played me like a fiddle for your ad read.
You know me. It's the second best transition on this show behind Eric transitioning into a puppet.
It's like, where are we going with this one?
The Minnesota Timberwolves are 1-point favorites in Sacramento, 221 total. Minnesota has very little ownership coming in on the DraftKings side, and it's basically the same to everybody unless they don't have it. 10% to Edwards, Randall, Gobert, DiVincenzo, Naz Reid, and then basically nothing for everybody else. A little bit more inflated on the FanDuel side, 20 to Edwards, 30 to Randall, 30 to Naz Reid, 20 to Gobert. How are you handling Minnesota? Because it's kind of a wide open question.
Getting 2x to field the Julius Randle right now, which 9% projected for him, getting 20%. It's not the biggest stand in the world, but for this slate, it does feel noteworthy because I've had a lot of hand holding on some of these guys. Randall, I do have a little bit better projected than Stokastic by 0.6. So that could be part of it. But I think he looks like a solid player relative to that price point, dual position eligibility. I think that sort of makes sense why I'm getting there. Everybody else basically flat with the field. 12% Anthony Edwards, projecting 11% right now. I've got 9% Gobert compared to 13%, so a little bit lower there. 12% Dante DiVincenzo compared to 11, and 7% Naz Reid compared to 14% rounded up there. So I think these guys all look pretty good. Honestly, the projections here look better. Feel like we got a lot of kind of flotsam players for the Thunder, for the Nuggets jammed in, and those guys don't project quite as well. So maybe that means Minnesota, I don't know. The ownership looks light for them. I feel like they look light. They look like good projected plays. I don't really have an issue with anybody here.
Yeah, I like them a lot on the FanDuel side. Very happy to get them in a matchup against a pretty not good defense in Sacramento. Probably a defense that's going to be even worse than they were last year, swapping out Harrison Barnes for DeMar DeRozan. So 20% ownership coming into Edwards, I'm neutral. 30 coming into Randall, I have 40. 20 to Gobert, I'm neutral. 10 to DiVincenzo, I'm around 20. And then just shy of 30% ownership for Naz Reid, I have 40. I have a pretty big stand on Minnesota over the field in the aggregate. Only guy I'm actually like quite a bit under the field on is Jaden McDaniels. I don't mind that at all. If I don't get the one game out of every like 3 or 4 weeks where he actually makes some shots, he's not going to exist. So I can handle that. I really like Minnesota on the FanDuel side, but give me Naz Reid, who could play his way into a couple extra minutes here pretty easily. And give me Julius Randle to have a little bit more success here than he did on opening night.
Yeah, he looks slim out there, which the announcers probably pointed out a few too many times because he wasn't doing anything that great on the court. But he looked a little bit skinnier. I feel like the push pull of him and Ant that doesn't. I mean, no, Josh, you care the most about the pure basketball of it. Doesn't feel like the greatest fit in the world for Randall and
No.
Edwards, but you know they're trying.
Hey, I'm anxious to see if they just trade Randall again.
Well, that's Randall's had such a tough career. Like he's not a great defender, so that's always going to be the thing you can point to. Like if you even get to the playoffs with him, how is he going to really hold up? But I feel like he's a better player than he deserves to just get moved around over and over again for like nothing.
I bet the $100 million makes it feel better.
Probably just help a little.
Yeah.
For a
He
guy with
doesn't work
his
at
knees rubbing
GameStop
together.
and then they're like, hey man, you got to go work in Sheboygan, Wisconsin now.
Yeah, I guess that would be a little bit worse, I suppose. But
Yeah.
I just want guys to get the respect. I feel like Randall's been quietly like a guy that you could rely on in DFS for years. I just want to give these guys like a medal. They deserve a Stokastic Hall of Fame ring.
It's tough to be good and not great.
It
You
is.
just you that purgatory in the NBA is a tough spot where you're like probably not the guy that gets it done in the playoffs, but you're really good in the regular season and drive a lot of like quality floor raising. Those guys are tricky to evaluate. Speaking of guys that raise the floor in the regular season and suck in the playoffs, Domantas Sabonis is 9,500 on DraftKings, 9,800 on FanDuel, and basically unowned. 8,500 on DraftKings for De'Aaron Fox, 9,400 on FanDuel, and basically unowned. What do you want to do with the top two dudes from the Kings?
I think leaving him basically unknown seems like the move here. Another one that's tough to parse out, like at least with the Minnesota situation with Edwards, with Randall, it's two guys there really competing for the ball that want the ball a lot. Here you now have three guys that want the ball a good amount, and bonus, I think, historically in these spots does defer a little bit more. But you add DeMar DeRozan in, and the rates are going to move around for sure. But what these guys' rates have been historically, you're talking about three guys that generally have a usage rate between 25 to 30 or upwards of that. Sabonis a little bit lower sometimes. It's hard to really want to play in these guys. Sure, one of them can hit. They're not highly owned. So if you have a 150 set, you wanted to play mixing and matching these guys on DraftKings because nobody's going to be there, I would get it. But the projection doesn't look that good. The Sims don't seem to think they're worth the upside. And again, on a slate where like deliberately I would like to move away from Tatum, they're not putting me to these guys to move away from Tatum. So I think that's sort of telling. But tournament plays are tournament plays.
I have 3% of Fox and no Sabonis. The no Sabonis one would bump me out more if I didn't know the rest of my exposures. But I already have 50% of Jokic, so half of my center spot on FanDuel is filled up by a guy that is unequivocally better than Domantas Sabonis. So like he's definitely not a problem. I had 20 something percent of Victor Wembanyama. So like, okay, I don't mind having more Wemby than Sabonis. So I'm not surprised that I'm thin on Sabonis. He could have a massive day. I mean, this dude hangs really big stat lines. Triple double is very much in the cards for Domantas Sabonis. That could happen. Dude fills up the stat sheet in the regular season. I just don't happen to have him today. Scary. He's probably I'm more scared about Sabonis than Tatum, honestly.
I also just don't know, like DeRozan and Sabonis fit. Like I think it's fine in terms of you want a guy who can score in the half court and be able to do that. Any guy who's gonna try to defend and at least try to put a body in front of people, even if it's not going to go well. I don't like Sabonis is going to lose assist upside to DeRozan. I would think though by the end of things. I have my stupid screen behind me went out. But I feel like that matchup to me or the match between them is maybe not the best overall. So I don't know. Just that's my. I now have a fucking broken. This looks so stupid behind me. But I got to put the great suspender on the images so you cannot see that it can't find the Twitter image that Jordan sent me before the show for a thumbnail.
The old blue screen of death behind you.
It's good. It honestly represents the vibes of the studio pretty well.
How would you like to handle newly minted Sacramento King DeMar DeRozan? 2% owned on DraftKings, 11 on FanDuel.
He's the lowest projected out of these three guys. For me, I have Sabonis about 4 points ahead of De'Aaron Fox. I guess if more like 6. 6 points of De'Aaron Fox. I have Fox 5 points of DeRozan. So we're talking about legit 11-point gap between Sabonis and DeRozan. And the price tag certainly a little bit cheaper, but really not cheap enough for DraftKings. To me, it's $7,800 salary. So DeRozan, the least of a priority, but none of these guys are priorities here. Besides Malik Monk, who I think actually looks okay on DraftKings.
I have a little bit of DeRozan, just 7%, not a lot to write home about. Let's talk Monk. 28% owned on DK at 5K, 13% owned on FanDuel at 5,700, and in 33% of my lineups. So if you're getting Monk, I'm also getting Monk.
Yeah, holding hands with the field on Monk. I think that's the right thing to do for him. We know the upside there. We know the usage is pretty solid. Maybe a little bit of trickle down if you stagger minutes and you see these guys breaking up into different groups that could hurt Monk's usage just by having maybe 2 of Fox and Sabonis and DeRozan out there with him. But besides that, I think Monk, we know the opportunity there. We know the upside. Slate's still where he's like total chalk. I feel like Monk is a little bit of a fool's play, but on this slate, not that chalky. Makes lineups work. I like him.
Anything else you want from Sacramento? Herder, Murray, Keon Ellis, Trey Lyles?
Got a little bit of Murray, a little bit of Keon Ellis, but not enough to write home about. Feels like the Kings are really the one team here. I feel like the ownership, honestly, this game overall, if this game were to have an outlier performance here, people won't be there that much. Obviously, the team totals do support this one being a little bit lower scoring, but I don't know. It's not like either defense is that good. I mean, Gobert helps out a lot, but it's not like they're that good. I think you could game stack this.
Anything else you want to add for Sacramento or for the slate as a whole?
No, it's an interesting slate, honestly. One of those where you really, I think the minimum salary, Bub Carrington feels like a key play to just kind of bite the bullet on based on what we're seeing so far. But fading Tatum, playing some other stars, taking a 3K play. I think those are really the main things I would try to do for most of my lineups.
Chris Spags, tell the people where to find you.
You can follow me at Chris Spags, my new NBA channel, my Splash Play NBA channel launching on Monday. I'll be doing some Stokastic stuff, some other stuff as well, looking at props and all of that. But that's coming out on Monday at Splash Play NBA. So check that out. I'm sure I will whore it more here. But otherwise, I'll be back on the deeper dive with Josh on Monday. So looking forward to that again.
There we go, everybody. Deeper dive in the books. We're a little light on likes. We have 250. So for the 1,800 people that are here, hit that thumbs up. Let's run that number up for Live Before Lock. Show those guys the love. Good luck tonight, everybody. Win a whole bunch of money. We're back again tomorrow, but Live Before Lock is now.
I'm always ready to go. Just clearing that up.
What Is going on, everybody? Welcome to NBA Live Before Lock, presented by Stokastic here. We got the $1 deal going right now. I'm just going to throw that right out from the get-go. Tip-off 2-4. Tip-off 2-4. That being 2024, the year lord of, what am I trying to say? Doesn't matter. Tip-off 2024. Don't put the 20 in. You got yourself a $1 deal until October 29th. Fire this one up. I'm Eric Lindquist. That's really what I wanted to throw from the onset. I'm kind of getting everything thrown together here all at once. I had an error here in my spreadsheet. It is throwing me off, but either way, I have Matt Belman here. He's going to be able to procrastinate for me. Allow me to procrastinate, I suppose. How you doing, my dude?
I'm good, man. Better now that I'm here with you talking some hoops.
Oh God, it's so
my
good.
first NBA show. So excited to break it down with you. Playing more lineups than I normally do. I've been doing some stuff with The Sims, so excited to break it down with you.
Yeah, we got early season NBA going, and The Sims are already firing on all cylinders. We have Portfolio EV over on the Odd Shopper side, firing on all cylinders. That is also $1 going right now. You can get both of those deals. Jordan Klein, just throw both of them into chat, because $2, you can get Portfolio EV on the Odd Shopper side, and you can get the NBA core package on the Stokastic side. $2 for a full week of both. You want to utilize it now. Early season NBA, there are so many bets available today. I have probably 80 bets going here today. I have a bunch of pick'em cards going today, posting a bunch in tails. I woke up this morning to Puka Nakua's all of a sudden in, shorted the crap out of Tutu Atwell and DeMarcus Robinson. Hopefully he plays a lot, that being Puka Nakua. Wild stuff going on, and of course, Skull. But we got 4 games in the association going. Are you playing like your normal? Because I remember from NBA shows last year, you're playing like 1 or 2 main lineups.
Yeah, no, I'm not. I'm actually tonight. I'm playing 50 lineups. So
let's go.
Yeah, all simming it. I'm playing with the Sims. Early season NBA, there's so much unknown. I feel like multi-entering just has even that much more of an edge because there's more variance in NBA now than there will be even in like a couple weeks when pricing is adjusted. Real quick, because obviously you said Skull and you're wearing the jersey. I was going to ask you, I know you're a huge Vikings fan, but you also live in LA. So are you like a pseudo Rams fan at all?
Yeah, no, not at all. 0%. I mean, I split time between here. My folks are out in Arizona now.
Are you going to the game?
I'm going to go out there for a couple of games later on here in the year and probably spend some of the winter months out there. But for the most part, no, I'm not going to go. My wife is working the game though tonight for Paramount Plus, which is kind of wild. They've got a box going for CBS people. Obviously, it streams on Amazon Prime now, but she's going to be at the game and I'm not, which is just hilarious. But you know what? I'm worried about the NBA, and early season NBA can be the most profitable. I want to fire as much as I possibly can here early in the season, and she understands that that's how I operate. So I will be cheering. I will be watching. I will probably go to a bar for the second half, but NBA leans, likes, and locks. Got to fire up as many pick'em cards as possible for the people tonight. I'm excited. How about you?
Yeah, I'm excited about the NBA. I'm excited about this football game. I think this is a really, really good football game. So just excited for a full night of sports. I'm playing 50 NBA lineups, 50 showdown lineups, and I have a medium-sized wager on the Rams tonight. Sorry. Ooh. I like them a lot here. It's, the teams after playing the Lions. The line is low for a 5-1 team against 2-4 team. But for me, a lot of it is you look at what teams have done after playing Detroit, and then they're on a short week. I think Minnesota is in a tough spot. That said, they're the better team. So, like, if they won this game by a touchdown or more, I wouldn't be surprised at all. It's just a classic NFL spot where I like the Rams,
Yep, and the Rams were able to kind of handle business without Kupp, without Nakua here on Sunday, and now they're on a short week too, but they get their 2 biggest prize entities on the offensive end. I mean, Kyron Williams is awesome, but don't get anybody wrong, Puka Nakua and Cooper Kupp. They're going to make a lot more money over the course of their NFL careers because they're a lot more valuable at the wide receiver position. Didn't see Puka Nakua playing in the cards for this week, but that came to fruition. Either way, Skull, I do like Aaron Jones unders, so take that for what you will. That is one thing that on a short week I'm pretty confident does end up coming to fruition, but we shall see. I'm cheering for it. Let's get ourselves into some NBA here, though. DraftKings, FanDuel, I'm going to be covering a little bit of both. I'm excited about this slate. Is there anything before we start diving in that you really want to bring up about it?
I mean, not really. I love 4-game slates in general. I just think it's a fun size. especially at the beginning of the year. I had a really good night on the first night of the season, just using the Sims. I was in that train for second on the main slate. That it was one of the only times I was upset that a solo shipper passed the train because I was in the train. But you know what I mean? It is what it is.
Yeah.
Me and 25 other people were upset about it. But I like this slate a lot. I think there's a bunch of good spots. The thing with the NBA, especially right now, is there's marquee names all over the place. So especially tonight, there's big names in pretty much every game on every team, sans like Washington. So should be a fun slate. I've run a bunch of different sims, tweaking some things. And I'm excited to get into like where I think are some edges.
All right, well, let's do it here. I'm going to be playing on both sites today. I have 25 lineups on DK and 150 on FanDuel. I'm keeping it pretty clean, just contest specific, as I am hosting for the first time in the NBA streets today alongside Matt Belman. Very excited for this. Let's party. And on DraftKings today, there's no doubt that from what we saw 2 nights ago against the Knicks, the Boston Celtics were crazy. Jason Tatum was crazy. Minimal minutes, tons of threes, tons of production. Absolutely had to have him and Anthony Davis on opening night in order to win anything. 9,300 for him against the Wizards. I got to say, his optimal percentage is a lot lower for us in the boom bust tool. And as you work through the data and as you work through stuff, I'm getting to a little bit of him on the top end. But the one guy I want to ask you about before we begin, Luka Doncic at the point guard position. We have 2 centers in Nikola Jokic and Victor Wembanyama that are quite popular, but also not all that popular relative to what Luka and what Jason Tatum is. Because Tatum's the cheapest, I find there being some utility to trying to get to Luka, where you talk about mega ceilings here. Wembanyama could be ridiculous. No Jeremy, there's Jeremy Sohan out there, but no Devin Vassell that's going to be out there tonight that can be a usage guy from time to time. And Wemby on the defensive end for FanDuel purposes, absolutely ridiculous. However, Luka Doncic is the guy that I'm by far getting to most to on the expensive end. I know he was like questionable in quotation marks coming into this one, but I absolutely love getting to him. I'm actually prioritizing him over Jokic because the center position, one that I'm kind of spread out with more than I was expecting. How are you feeling about the top spend ups here on DraftKings tonight?
I'm getting to the exact same amount of Jokic and Luka.
Okay.
And I'm getting to significantly more Wemby. I have Wemby playing like a minute or 2 more than I think the industry is projecting. I think we just see a huge bump from him all over this year, wherever that's possible. I know he was insane at the end of last year, but still a rookie. I expect all leashes off here, and I think he's just too cheap still. And again, we haven't necessarily seen it, and he's not cheap. I just think he's too cheap for his production this year. For reference, I'm getting to 34% Jokic and Luka, 66% Wemby.
66% Wemby. Oh my Lord. See, that's kind of like an interesting way to go about building on this. Like Daniel Gafford makes me very, very uncomfortable. However,
I'm playing some Gafford too.
Yeah. I just feel like center, there's a number of different guys to get to. At least Gobert is less part of the conversation today. But like Lively and Gafford, I think both of them are interesting at about the exact same price point on DK. Jokic, I feel as though he's going to be the guy that is just behind Luka when my lineups settle here as we're talking through it. But I just feel like positionality here, Luka Doncic, like SGA, as much as he is incredible to watch play basketball and really, really enjoyed what we saw from him last year, playing alongside Lou Dort, Jalen Williams, Alex Caruso, Chet Holmgren, and then a decent enough bench, it feels like opening night, we're not going to see like SGA type unleashed stuff. Jamal Murray had a terrible, terrible summer. If you watched him play for Canada very sparingly, he was about the worst player on the floor at all given moments. And I'm very curious to see how he shows tonight. Maybe SGA just throttles him, and we'll take a look at it later. But like Luka Doncic, I just have projected for so much more. Stokastic, we haven't projected for so much more. He's got an optimal percentage north of 33%, and his ownership is sub 30%. So like I feel like the leverage that I'm getting with Luka and Jokic is really, really nice. But yeah, Wemby is going to be a FanDuel play for me, I think, all the live long day. He's more popular over there, has the power forward eligibility. This is where it's really important to be playing multiple sites because for me, I'm going to be a little bit lower on Wemby than it sounds like you are on DK, but because I have FanDuel exposure, it's not like I'm going to be cheering against him because he is my highest owned over there at, what is he, 11.5, power forward eligibility, right around 28% ownership, but north of a 33% optimal there as well. I mean, what is there to say about him? The guy's incredible. Anything else about these spend ups that you want to point out? Anybody that you're shorting in a pronounced way?
Anyone that I am shorting in a pronounced way, let me check real quick.
It's like SGA, I don't have in 25 lineups on DK.
I'm not shorting SGA at all. I'm actually a little bit over the field on SGA. Nothing intentional. It's just like where it came in. I'm not playing much Fox or Sabonis, but the field isn't really. I'm not playing the Celtics studs. That's one thing I'm not really at all. Tatum, I am way lower than the field, and Jaylen Brown, I'm lower than the field. So maybe that's where I'm kind of taking my stand. I'm also playing a lot. And when I mean a lot of a 3K guy who I'm sure we'll get to in a little bit.
Carlton Carrington.
Yeah,
when I woke up this morning,
Carrington.
I thought I was being trolled, but we'll get into that a little bit because I don't know how to get away from it at 3K today because of what he does.
I'm playing 98%.
It's a fucking lot. That's a lot of that's a lot. Can I talk you into some Julian Strother to potentially get off of a little bit of it?
I am
Julian
also playing some Strother.
Okay.
I am playing some Strother, but not clearly not nearly as much as I am Carrington.
I mean, this is just an absurd thing that is happening in my life. The amount of Carrington, we'll get into the ins and outs of that specific play as we work down the board a little bit, but amongst expensive players that are just below that tier, again, kind of doing this a la what we do on the NFL Live Before Lock, as we work through some of the price tiers. Jason Tatum at 9,300. Is this a guy above, below, or right around 50% for you tonight?
Way lower. I'm getting about 20% Tatum. Great spot against Washington. You can't play everyone. It's going to be hard to, Boston's the same team they've been. They have one of the best rosters that I've seen, I think, in years. I think they're the clear top team in the NBA. Like, I don't even think it's close. So on any given night, especially in a game like this, you're obviously hoping Washington stays close here. I don't know. This is not a spot I'm upset about being underweight on Tatum, even though I'll recognize his 9,300 price tag looks good, when looking at the top guys compared to him.
Yeah, it's such an interesting thing coming off of having seen him. Like that's kind of the fun thing about this slate is we have a couple teams we've seen where we can kind of identify what the minutes look like in normal run. And then we have a couple teams that we still have a ton of questions about. And that'll obviously lead into the insane conversation about Mr. Carrington himself. But I don't really have anything else to talk about amongst the expensive guys. I think we did a pretty good job of it. SGA, I'm not really going to be getting there. Domantas Sabonis, not really going to be getting there. Anthony Edwards, buyback?
Yeah, I'm buying back on Ant a little bit here. Fields getting to him. I think he's going to be higher owned than we're projecting, but I'm about double what the Field's getting to right now. How about you?
Yeah, I'm north of the field here. I'm right around 22%. And no, it's not just because I'm wearing a Minnesota Vikings jersey, and I'm just so happen to be a Minnesota Twins and Timberwolves fan, but I'm also very much here for Anthony Edwards having some of those explosion games, sub 9K for him. It's a 4-game slate. It's going to be a spot where you have the push and pull going. If you're going to get to a lot of Carrington, if you're going to get to a lot of Strother, which I'm also going to be doing, you're going to find yourself onto some of the expensive guys trying to rotate between them. I should probably give SGA a bump to get to some because currently I do have 0%. That's just because of how much Luka I'm getting to. And then De'Aaron Fox, somebody that, if I'm going to get 2-3% De'Aaron Fox, I think that's a little bit more interesting than like 14-15% SGA on this slate at 9,900 when the minutes aren't necessarily going to be 36-38 right out of the gate. But there were so many games last year where SGA didn't have to get pushed either. I mean, we had so many blowout situations against Denver. It shouldn't be that. I feel like these are the competitive spots where like SGA in the back of my mind, I'm like, I should really get to him, but really not showing up for me in the Sims.
The more you talk about SGA, the more I like him. Not going to lie. I'm just thinking about this OKC roster. It's really, really good, but offensively, there isn't that much competition for SGA. Obviously, he'd be the number one guy regardless, but Jalen Williams is there, but the guys they brought in. I know Hartenstein's hurt, but Caruso is not an offensive guy. So I just think, man, it's going to be a competitive game. At least it should be in Denver. There's a lot to like about Shea here. I don't think necessarily more than the other guys we've talked about, but he's in that mix for me at least.
All right. To round out the conversation about the expensive guys, somebody else who's also pretty offensive to me is Julius Randle. How dare he? How dare he show up and lay an egg against LA, his former team, and just look like a dum-dum? But you know what? He's 7,800 today. Also positive leverage coming in on him. And to round out the expensive guys too, Kyrie Irving, 7,500 or above, 7,500 over for him on DraftKings. I find that to be too appealing. I think that he, with the shooting guard eligibility, looks even a little bit better, fits into lineups really easily. I'm just worried we get to the flip and he's like 35, 40% owned. That would not surprise me in any way, shape, or form. What are you planning to do with Kyrie Irving this evening?
Well, he's projected to be 41% owned, so I don't think you're crazy to think that at all.
Never mind. I had the wrong number in my sheet.
I'm less than half. I have less than half the field of Kyrie, and I have more than double on Randall. I'm actually getting Randall and Kyrie at the same ownership. And it makes sense to me. Like, I think Kyrie looks better from a points per dollar perspective, but Randall is not getting the ownership. And we've just seen one game from him. I'm a big Randall fan. Like, I like this trade a lot in general for Minnesota. I'm not ready to sell after one game.
I hated it. It hurts my feelings so much. And Cat, I have my issues with Cat, but I have more issues with Julius Randle. Maybe we can get Julius Randle to knock down some shots and play some actual defense tonight. That would make me especially happy. Guitar Z-Man in the chat makes me happy. Eric is the nuts whisperer for NBA DFS. Love my dude. I love you too. I love all the people in the land here. And let's get some super chats, because how many of them got answered on the last show, Jordan Klein? Like, fucking none of them. Right. Yeah, in your bra. Okay. Rob Live, $4.99. What up, doe? Guys, question, what website can I find defense versus position and team pace? My favorite is dunksandthrees.com. I utilize that in addition to NBA Wowie, which is addmorefunds.com. I think those two sites alone, you can do just about everything that you want to do. I do have StatHead as well, which is on Basketball Reference. I think that being able to pull data from there is really, really useful. Have a lot of fun with Excel in that, but dunksandthrees.com and Add More Funds, those are two incredible sites. If you're looking, very cheap, very reasonable. I think it just re-upped. What is my active subscription? It's $49.95 for the year for Dunks and Threes. I cannot recommend them enough. I have no relation to them whatsoever. Just shout out for them having some of the coolest graphics and the ability to compare players, compare stats amongst teams. You can also do player analytics where you can remove players now from the construction, and they have game predictions and playoff probabilities attached to it. So they've done a lot of this stuff that 538 has done, only they do it a little bit better, even though I think that they were somehow attached to them once upon a time. Anywho, hopefully that helps you. I love them. I think you will too. Olrat14, $2. Prob early, Tatum Horford or Lively Sabonis. Please tell me what site you are playing. Whenever you ask these questions, 2v2s are impossible unless you give us sites. But Tatum Horford, Lively Sabonis, I can guarantee you Sabonis probably on neither site for me today.
Yeah, probably the Tatum side just by default, but I don't really like Horf. I mean, yeah, the Tatum side.
And then you had another one, $2 super chat again. Josh, if picking Jokic, who's your 3.5K guy with him? If I guarantee you, if I go to like the 3.5K and look down, it's going to be the Carlton character and it's going to be Julian Strawther. Julian Strawther, I have a lot of lineups. Wiggins at 3,400 is going to be somebody that we obviously can have in some lineups. And I think Quentin Grimes is kind of interesting on the Dallas side. Do you have anything else you want to add sub 3,500 that he could mix into lineups?
I mean, I'm totally with you. Like, obviously, I said I'm getting to so much Carrington. I like Strawther. I'm getting to a tiny bit of Usman Jang. And I'm getting to some Aaron Wiggins over the field on Aaron Wiggins. So, yeah, those guys right there. Carrington, Dieng, Strawther, and Wiggins.
Is Kaishan George a guy showing up in your lineups at all?
No, although, I understand why he would be for you.
I'm thinking about it. These are the decisions we will make. If you're saying who behind your computer right now, totally understandable. So was I this morning. Don't worry. Again, Washington, an absolute train wreck to work through. We'll do our best to work through it here as we go along to the cheapies. Spencer Sharp, $1.99. How do you upload lineups from The Sims to DK? I'm so glad you asked. That's almost like an audience plant. We have an incredible new way to be able to do it with the entry manager in The Sims. Jordan Klein, pull up The Sims right now, because the download projections, you can now do entry manager with every single contest that you're in over on DraftKings. On FanDuel, a little different. You're still going to copy paste. You're still going to go through the motions. You're going to want to download that CSV. Then you're going to want to attach the lineups that you make directly from The Sims. When you favorite them, export the favorites. It's in the bottom right corner. But now with our entry manager, right now, I'm playing some lineups in the $15. I'm playing 5 of those, and then I'm playing 20 lineups in the $4 because, again, hosting this, I'm playing 150 on FanDuel. A little bit easier for me to build out 150 on FanDuel and let it fly over there. I think it's a little bit softer early in the season as well, for what it's worth, if you're looking to play over there. But that entry manager in the top right corner can be your new savior there. And I repeat, $1 to try out The Sims and the NBA Core package right now using tip-off 2-4. So check that out. Sign up for that in that link that Jordan Klein's going to post into chat here as well. But that entry manager, you can now upload that CSV from DraftKings there, and then we will take care of it on the back end for you to easily sign up and utilize that CSV and upload it back to DraftKings. If you haven't tried it out yet, try doing a couple of test runs. That was kind of what I did, and it is so much easier than what I anticipated it to be. Our dev team absolutely crushed it. So if you guys want to take a look at that, strongly recommend it. And I strongly recommend using that entry manager for all of your lineups going forward on DraftKings, because it just makes life so much easier. But thank you for the super chat. Anthony Harris, welcome to Team Stokastic. Love to see it. And Avi Schreier, my guy, $1.99. Good to see you. Ken Shireman, see blowout minutes. Walsh bricked. Yeah, I think everybody kind of bricked there. And Shireman's a cool guy because I liked Shireman back. Says it was a cool guy. Return the love I had, make me want to cry, be evil. That's the second Austin Powers. But Shireman was awesome once upon a time at Creighton. I think, yeah, gotta say no, though. There's just no way that Shireman's going to show up in my lineups.
No, I mean, you can't play someone just in the hopes they're going to play blowout run. You at least need them like in the rotation, and then they'll get the blowout run as well. So
Peyton Pritchard. No. Yeah, exactly. That's the Peyton Pritchard play today.
Right, not Shireman. I think you're reaching way too far, in the stars for that one.
All right, let's go down into the mid-range here and talk about some of the plays that are popping up for you here. We got, all the chalk ends up showing up cheap to some extent here, but we have a couple of mid-range guys. Alex Caruso showing up quite a bit in lineups. I suppose Jaylen Brown, an expensive guy we didn't necessarily talk about. Great positionality on DraftKings, shooting guard, small forward. And then Alex Sarr, which is, somebody that I've seen a lot of questions about today. The guy's making $11-12 million here as a top 2 pick, top 3 pick of whatever he was, coming out of, where did Alex Sarr come from? I can't even remember at the top of my head, but France, there you go. It's Livy Osaw, not Alex Saw or something.
Wait, maybe I'm wrong there.
Alex Sarr, that sounds right.
Okay.
Yeah, don't question yourself like that. You had it. You're beautiful, no matter what they say. Words can't bring you down. Alex Sarr, 5K, power forward only, though. People are playing him in gobs and droves. Doesn't seem like the Sims really like that play as much, but who in the mid-range do you find yourself gravitating towards?
I'm not playing any Sarr, so yeah, there's that. In the mid-range, the guys that I'm heavy on, and my ownership's kind of concentrated, so there's 3 guys in the mid-range I'm playing a lot of: PJ Washington, Alex Caruso, and Sohan. So those guys are a little bit cheaper than the mid-range, like under 5K, but PJ Washington's 5,100. Those are guys I'm getting a heavy amount of.
All right. Yeah, there's not a lot for me to talk about here. I think some of the chalk is okay. Like, if we're going to talk anybody 5K or above, I'm just fine playing Caruso. Shooting guard only isn't ideal. But he should play a lot of minutes here for this team right from the get-go. What a great acquisition by Oklahoma City. Did super smart things, Sucks that Isaiah Hartenstein broke his hand right from the get-go, because I was excited to see the fully operational Death Star. We're going to have to wait a little bit for it. I think Jalen Williams at 7,600 just fine as well. I mean, shit, it feels like I'm playing every OKC guy in terms of value in this starting five, and I'm just not getting to, well, Aaron Wiggins off the bench too from the cheap end. We'll talk about him, but SG, I have to bump him up. I'm just going to kick myself when it's all said and done. How do you feel about Naz Reid at 5,100? Because there are going to be a lot of minutes here, and something that I probably didn't work through enough was like, Julius Randle's the new guy in town here. He doesn't have built-in minutes for Karl Anthony Towns, and when we just saw Minnesota in the playoffs, there were times where Naz Reid just stayed out there because he was a walking heat check. I think there's just more built-in minutes for him this entire season. 5,100 isn't ideal because there are some games where he's not going to be knocking down shots and they're just going to switch Randle in there at the 7-8 minute mark rather than later like we saw in that opener. But Naz Reid at 5,100 is at least interesting, a little bit overowned, I suppose, but somebody that from a tournament perspective, I think you're going to not want to really ignore any day of the week. Anybody else that you're having show up in your lineups like 25, 30% or more?
No, I like Naz Reid here. I'm only getting 10%. I kind of wish that was more. It's not. I agree with you on the price. I think there's volatility in there. On some nights, that price is going to be too expensive. On other nights, it's going to be way too cheap. So yeah. And then, yeah, just going back to Sar real quick. This isn't even to correct you. I'm just saying because I thought I was missing something. I'm seeing him project for like under 1% ownership. So I'm not missing anything and I'm happy I'm not getting any.
Am I looking at FanDuel again? Am I looking at FanDuel?
You must have been.
Yeah, I'm looking at FanDuel. He's 34% over on FanDuel. My sheet is all screwed up early on in the season. And yeah, I just had the FanDuel pulled up instead of DraftKings. I should probably paste the other one in. We have 30 minutes, so I will be able to correct my error. On FanDuel, I think he's okay to get to. I have 30% of him, so there is what it is. I'm going to switch this over to DraftKings so that I make sure that I'm talking more about that. I know more people are playing over there. I have more lineups and more money on FanDuel today, but that doesn't mean everybody else is. So there we go. We'll continue on our merry way. But yeah, Sar, not going to be as much of a talking point there. Let's get to the sheepies, shall we? Smash the like button for myself, for Matt Belman. You're going to follow him at Fantasy Tips Matt over on X. But my friend, we have a cheapie in Carlton Carrington, which sounds like a character from Downton Abbey. I don't know what to say other than he's 3K projecting for minutes. I have some thoughts. I went through some box scores and through some preseason stuff. I find him to be lock button territory. Oh, he's starting? Yeah, no, he's lock button territory. Holy shit.
Who is that? Sorry, I like it.
Oh yeah, now he's absolutely a fucking lock. Like, what are we even talking about? I was gonna say he was a lock before I even knew he was starting. He's actually starting. Good talk. My God.
Oh, Carrington?
Yeah.
Yeah, Bub. Yeah, I'm playing him in 98% of lineups. I mean, I kind of wish it were 100 now. Almost wish he wasn't starting because his ownership is going to be crazy high now. Like,
it was already crazy high.
Yeah, but okay, fair. But we had him optimal 55% of the time, and he was projected for 38% ownership, which is high, but clearly not high enough. Now it's going to like balance out. You know what I mean? So I don't like that, but obviously it's just a much safer play. And I'm playing 98%. It's not going to change.
Man, that was ironic timing. I'm not going to lie. I was going to say it felt like the play that was too good to be true as I was working through it. And we have Richie, our guy on the projections, Richie Green, hanging out in chat there, letting it be known that he was starting as well. That, I gotta say, is going to be something that pretty undeniably good. I can't believe that he ended up starting here right from the get-go, but such is life. 100%. I don't really know what to tell you. If you don't have him in a lineup, you're insanely contrarian, but you're probably also just hoping that he tweaks his ankle or something, because there's no reason you shouldn't have him at 3K.
Totally agree.
Well, there's no such thing as a pivot off of him, but anybody else? Because there's the one guy that I wanted to talk about, at least from the Wizard side of things, working through that Knicks box score in the preseason, where we saw George Kuzma, Valanciunas, Poole, and Carrington start in that one. He played 22 minutes. Carrington did. Again, he's just going to be a lock play for me. There are some still interesting pieces that we can potentially look at from there. And God, I mean, Washington, I feel like there's a number of these guys and a number of ways that these minutes can go. We also do have that blowout run. I mean, you talked about it from the perspective, but like Keyshawn George, I think is an unbelievably good play at 3K today. And what is his current ownership? Because now I have the right sheet in there. He has 2.4% ownership. He's optimal like 0.18% of the time, but the guy legitimately started that last game. We still have Malcolm Brogdon that we're going to be waiting on. He played 22 minutes with the starters in the last preseason game of the season for Washington. What am I missing? Like, shouldn't we definitely give him the opportunity? I mean, he filled up the box score too.
The thing is, yeah, I was going to say, like, I'm just not sure how fantasy friendly his game is going to translate, where Carrington's, it's so much easier for point guards and centers to just get fantasy points. Maybe Keyshawn George does do that, but I think, at Miami, he was more of a scorer. Only played 1 year. So there's so much unknown with all these guys. Like, I like the call out. I'm like being devil's advocate, but I think you're 100% right here. I think the upside, if you're multi-entering for a guy like that, playing him with Carrington, playing him like as a pivot, I don't hate either.
Julian Strawther as well, 3,200 here. Denver has no bench. And when I say they have no bench, they have no bench. Russell Westbrook is pulling all the ownership and all the land here. I'm going to be well underweight to that and hope that it doesn't eviscerate me. I don't know what else they're supposed to do other than play Julian Strawther for more minutes. He's somebody that I know they were excited about. And, Kansar, not really the guy. Najee can't really play alongside Gordon, Jokic the way that they would want. More of like a backup center type at this point in time. Although I thought he did some nice things at times. But yeah, I like Julian Strawther because of the positionality, 3,200 for him. Do you have any thoughts about the Denver bench? Because again, we just picked on a number of 3K guys that we can play from Washington. Is there anybody not comparable, but like that we could take tournament shots on from Denver? Because I feel like the other benches are pretty straightforward, or they're expensive enough pieces that we don't really have to deal with it.
What I think about the Denver bench is that it sucks. But as far as your question goes, Peyton Watson, 3,800. I don't hate him. Not really getting to him much, though. Like, yeah, I don't really see, I like the Strawther call. I think that he makes the most sense. I think people are probably a little bit too high on him, but he's cheap as hell and will get run. And I know he played well in the preseason. And Carrington, again, we have no idea how many minutes he's going to play or if all his minutes are just, cardio minutes. We don't know, but we also kind of know who Strawther is. And with that unknown in Carrington comes had to have him type upside that we just don't know about. With Strawther, that could be in there, but we kind of know who Strawther is at this point. Will he play enough for that? Probably not, unless he's just on fire. So I just think that there's higher upside with Carrington.
For sure. I mean, he's 3K and starting, which definitely helps the case
right.
For just jamming him more than anything. I'm just kind of rerunning some stuff here. Julian Strawther going to still be in right around 20% of my lineups here. He's pulling a little bit of ownership, 16% now, 16.7%. I think this Keyshawn George character is going to show up in more lineups than what I'm comfortable saying out loud right now. So you're going to have to just deal with it. Yeah, I could look really, really dumb in hindsight, but my God, this is giving me access to absolutely every single stud on the slate. I just hope that we get 2 mega ceilings. I'm hoping for 75, 80 from Jokic, Wemby, Luka, one of those 3. Everything would be lovely for me. We do have a piece in Jeremy Sohan at 4,600 we haven't talked about. Russell Westbrook, we could probably dig in a little bit. I'm underweight to both of them as it stands right now. I'm thinking this is also going to be the case for some other people. With the option to go to Carlton Carrington in 100% of lineups and be just fine with it, or near 100% of lineups and be just fine with it, there's less of a need to potentially get to some of those guys the same way. They're starting. They're going to be guys who still look really, really good for tournaments, I think. And Malik Monk, sitting there at 5K with shooting guard, small forward, kind of feels like the dude who I can't really piece together how the Kings are going to be rotating guys around. I mean, are they only going to play 8 guys more than likely, like Keon Ellis? probably going to be 24, 26 minutes, probably Malik Monk, maybe around that same range, maybe a little bit more, but God, Sacramento has a pretty thin bench as well. Same kind of thing we're looking at with Denver. Anybody else sub 5K from those teams that you like?
I'll just reiterate that I'm getting to a ton of Sohan. So
Okay.
I know that you said you were getting under the field on him and Westbrook. I'm getting under the field on Westbrook, but way over the field on him. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Any MPJ, they were asking in the chat. We got Rimpack bringing up stuff and goodness. Man, it's a beautiful time to have NBA DFS back. I definitely love that. But MPJ, let me take a look. It's in my book, Reading Rainbow.
I'm right at the field on MPJ. I'm getting 16% of him.
I don't have any right now in 25 lineups. That's okay. I'm all right making some stands like that in 25 lineups. MPJ 5,800. Oh, nope. I have 8% of him. There we are.
Yeah.
Yep. Cool. Safe Din Suffer. I think I did that correctly, and nothing bad there. Super, that is. $1.99. Playing Carr, Straw, and George together. Crazy. No, although, I mean, assuming you're saying SAR, but that is definitely a spicy meatball.
It's no, just because SAR is not a good play on DraftKings. Like, that's why. He's not cheap like the other guys.
Yeah, he's 6K. Let's not do that.
No, I mean, I do think that like I just feel like they're opposite. Like, why would you play all those guys together? If they were all 3K, I see your point, but like, they're not the same plays. You need SAR to actually like be good here.
Yeah, let me put it this way. The last two that you have there, Straw and George, I love. I think undeniably good Straw. The Carlton Carrington.
Yeah.
Strother, and I think 3,200 Julian Strother is a great tournament.
But you're just talking about the Washington guys. We get it.
Yeah, but George and Carrington, I mean, those two guys are just absolutely insane. I mean, Carrington, if you saw him play along like Dillingham and some of the Kentucky guys, I mean, he is hashtag good too. But like, this Washington team still sucks as a whole. So have fun, Carrington. Have fun.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he's still really, really young too. Carrington is. He came out after his freshman year and he played at Pitt. So it wasn't like the competition was that crazy.
I thought he was at Kentucky for some reason. Why am I thinking Kentucky? He was at Pitt. Well, I'm a damn dirty liar. Go me. Let me pull this up. All right. I think I got everything uploaded here into my sheets. What were you saying? Oh, Matt checks Slack. Look at that. These are good things. Anyway, we've got another super chat. This is kind of like the super chat show. I really appreciate this. Makes the time fly. Plus 4-game slates. Not as much to talk about, especially when there's no injury news. There will still be applicable late swap. You're still going to want to late swap your lineups. You're still going to want to be paying very, very close attention to news because you never know when somebody starts, such as a Carrington fellow that you just weren't really expecting. And then, well, there goes the neighborhood. I am looking at what is your pool ownership on FanDuel? Phil Senzig. That is always a great question. I like talking Sims specific. I have in my pool 54% Jordan Poole. He is one of the better plays over there. 6,500, I think, on FanDuel. He's going to be really, really popular. I'm going to be around that, I think. Let me finish my last deal here for FanDuel purposes, and I will let you know exactly how much I have. But yeah, my pool ownership, I have at 54%. I believe his ownership is at 52.5% projected. Pierre, $2 super chat. Derek White and Porter or DeRozan and Monk on FanDuel. Thanks. That is very, very much thank you to you. You're the one giving us money, and we are simply answering your questions. DeRozan, I have 8%. I feel like I have 8% of everybody today. Monk, I have 16% on FanDuel. That is ironically a multiple of 8. Oop. Hopefully that didn't just cut me out there. We've got White. Yeah, White, a lot more popular over there, 7K. And Porter. Oh boy, it's kind of a tough one. I'm going to go to White and Porter, although White is probably one of the most overowned plays on FanDuel today. Do you have any thoughts about that one? White and Porter or DeRozan and Monk? It's kind of an icky 2v2.
Are you getting any DeRozan on DraftKings? Because I'm not.
Let me find out. I have 0 DeRozan.
Yeah,
0.
that's another situation. Like it's hard to know what to make of that right now. Like adding a guy like that, just plugging him in, not really taking anyone out, you know?
Oh boy. The amount of Monk and Caruso that I have right now on DK could choke a donkey. This would be bad. This would be bad.
I do feel like the Kings in general, like DeRozan being there most likely hurts everyone because he's, you know, a guy that's a little bit of a black hole. He likes to get his own shot. He doesn't shoot a ton of threes, et cetera, et cetera. But maybe he just makes them better. Already a really good offensive team. And maybe, you know, on a 4-game slate, like they just get there. Maybe they score 15 points more than their team total implies they do. Because it is interesting how like all the Kings' best players are going very low owned here.
But they kind of are. I mean, it's a new circumstance. They're priced up relative to some of the
like
other
I
teams
get
that
it.
have some cheapies. And like, I get it too. But what you're saying is that the ownership still looks really, really enticing to take shots.
Yeah, like I'm not playing it personally, but like, man, like, you know, Minnesota, they're not a team I necessarily want to go against, but like they brought in a couple new pieces. Their defense isn't as good now as it will be in like, you know, mid-season. And Sacramento is a good team offensively. And again, maybe I'm sure they will spread out DeRozan's minutes a bunch. Maybe it doesn't hurt Fox and Sabonis as much as the field's thinking it will. And again, I totally get it. We're on the same page. Like I'm not saying that they should be like highly owned. It's just interesting how good they are and how low owned they are.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Jacob Dunn, $2. Clay super contrarian ? Will get open looks regular season. I find it to be an interesting tournament play, probably for every slate, as long as he's like around this price range. I can't imagine he's going to have a ton of games that pull him above 6K. And he's not going to have enough games to, you know, he's going to have some floor games that keep him kind of in this range all season long. He's playing alongside Kyrie, playing alongside Luka Doncic, obviously. He's somebody who goes 0 for 10 from 3 with unfortunate regularity, but like also can find his way to 5 for 13 and really have these crazy 3-point games that, you know, don't even look that great on paper, but like just from a volume perspective, the scoring on DraftKings, really nice to 3-point shooters. We saw at times that he got himself going towards the tail end of last year before they had the early exit to Sacramento in the play-in tournament. And, you know, I think Clay's going to be a boom bust guy for them. Probably going to get more open looks playing alongside 2 guys who handle the ball primarily. I mean, Klay Thompson, he scored like 68 points or 70 points or whatever it was with like 2 dribbles. Like the guy doesn't need the ball in his hands at all. And that's exactly what they're looking for in Dallas alongside Kyrie and Luka. So I think he fits the archetype of exactly who they want. PJ Washington could sit in the corner as well on the other side and hopefully knock down threes the way he did at times throughout the playoffs. But Klay Thompson, somebody that I think any tournament slate period from now until the end of the year, you could just take shots on.
Yeah, it's almost like the Klay Thompson of old. Like he's cheaper now and you're not going to get as high of upside games as you used to, but new situation now, new city, new team, probably gets him rejuvenated. We know he can shoot the cover off the ball. And with how DK does reward the 3-pointers, like he's going to have some games where he's viable. I think it's going to be hard to pick out those games.
I think it's going to be very hard to pick out those games, but you know, those are the nice things to take it, you know, pretty nominal ownership here at the moment. Thank you for the super chat. Taylor MEID, $2. Why so much Sohan over Champagne? Because Champagne, from a fantasy perspective, not as appealing. We'll put it that way. I'm just going to pull up last year's rates to kind of give you an idea of what I'm talking about, because they're not good for Champagne. Sohan, at least, I mean, we saw point Sohan at times last season. Those were funny times to be on the planet Earth, but yeah, that was a real thing that actually happened. He's a 0.91 fantasy point per minute guy. That's useful. Champagne, 0.76. You're adding Chris Paul into the fray, not the band, just the group. I mean, it is just going to be tough for Champagne to find ceilings.
Yeah, I feel like Champagne's a guy you want to play when guys are out, not on opening night when everyone's in.
Champagne. There we go. I like that. I forgot that I can say things correctly. Dinwiddie at 4,200 on DK ? Any of that for you?
Who was that? Sorry.
Spencer Dinwiddie, 4,200.
I don't think I'm getting to a single share of Dinwiddie. How about you?
Not a single share. Now to the question that I really, really like from Gray, $5. What is one piece of advice you have for a first-time Sims user? I'll let you go first, Matt Belman, because I have mine. I feel pretty good about it, but I want to hear from you first. If you've never used The Sims, you're sitting down with it for the first time, you take advantage of that $1 deal that, again, is available to you using code TIPOFF24 up at the top of your screen. The link is in the bottom description below. It's also going to be thrown into chat for Jordan Klein one more time. But I would love if you could tell me your piece of advice for a first-time Sims user.
It's a great question. For me, I think it's just the old adage, practice makes perfect. Like, I think the Sims, especially Stokastic Sims, are so user-friendly that it really doesn't take much. And I wouldn't try to reinvent the wheel, so I'll keep it old school. Don't try to reinvent the wheel, and practice makes perfect.
Yeah, I think that that's a perfect way to say it. I would also have an idea of, as you're experimenting with it, go ahead and join the quarter arcade, join the 5 cent on FanDuel, join some really, really low stakes tournaments, unless, you're banned from them and you've been playing volume for a long time. Then it, unfortunately isn't going to apply for you. But I'd say 98% of people out there have an opportunity to enter the quarter arcade or the 5 cent and quarter over on FanDuel. And you can really play with the contest archetype, the pool size, and see what changes between your lineups that you make for like high stakes stuff, if you just build out what those lineups look like, and then what they look like for the low stakes. Figure out what it is that the Sims are really trying to tell you. And for me, it's identifying the best plays relative to ownership and volatility to some extent. Like, there is no doubt about it. You can run the Sims in NBA without any other things added to the fray, and you are going to have positive EV lineups. I would say out of any other sport, MLB, it can be hard because you really want to be building towards those 5-piece stacks. There are maybe some nuances with pitching from time to time, but in the NFL, you're going to have different stack selections. We've seen some insane stuff in the millie. However, you're trying to build the best lineups you can every single slate. And in the NBA, you don't have to, I promise you, we have been thinking about minutes projections and player projections all day long. We have legitimate meetings set up between people in order to make them better for you. Run them unencumbered, use the contest archetype, be aware of your pool size and what, like the 5-10%, what it is that's paying out to first in the contest you are identifying and playing in, and get in the process of just utilizing what the Sims is telling you and figure out how to adjust it for your own playing preferences. I would say for me, the main thing is just like letting it run and figuring out how to get through those early base stages where you just favorite the lineups, add them to a CSV through the entry manager, and you're fired up and set to go to make some money. Thank you for the super chat. We really, really appreciate it. 10 minutes to go. Smash the like button. Matt, how are your lineups looking right now?
Mine are looking great. The thing I love about early season NBA is we don't have the news that changes everything. And in NBA, that's just so crucial. Not to saying that can't happen, because it can happen on any night, but there's no one really on the injury report. A bunch of these teams haven't played yet. So this is the easy goings of the NBA season,
Well, we've got 3 things to do to round out our show, and I'm kind of not excited about one of them. There's a graphic that I know exists somewhere that has lotion and a whole thing. Jordan Klein, congratulations. You get to utilize it finally, but let's start with this one. He is
You got to do the Buffalo Bill
of the night. Oh my God, it's going to be so painful, and I'm not looking forward to it. Just play the video. Blow me up. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. There we are. Reached the end of my boarding walk. I die yet again. But Matt Belman, our lineups will not die on DraftKings. You're going to give your DraftKings specific. I'm going to give my FanDuel specific nuke of the night. Go ahead and fire it up.
Wemby would be too easy. So I'm going to go with his new running mate. None other than CP3.
Oh my God.
Chris Paul.
Oh my God.
Was that yours?
No, keep talking. I would love to keep hearing it.
Yeah, no, I love CP3 this year in general. I think that this is such a good spot for him. So many easy assists. I think he's going to play more than we're expecting, at least early on, to get this team going. I like CP3. I just think he's a little bit too cheap for how he's going to play this season.
All righty. Well, for FanDuel purposes, I am going to go to Victor Wembanyama. Remember, scoring and positionality matter. Playing multiple sites matters. This is why on FanDuel, you are able to get to way more Victor Wembanyama, and I am just happy to pull the full freight. Do you know, Matt Belman, what his block prop is today?
I don't, but I'm going to guess 3.5.
4.5. And it's basically close to even money, or it was earlier in the day. I think it's juiced towards the under now, but like 4.5 is the number that is posted. If he gets to 4 blocks, he goes under probably like a 60th percentile outcome to land on 4 here at this point in time. If he lands on 4, guess how many points you get for that on FanDuel? 12. You are building in 12 fantasy points for Victor Wembanyama on a day in, day out basis on the defensive end of the ball. Do you know how dumb that is, Matt Belman? It is very, very stupid.
I completely agree. I will say, just to like your point earlier, he is a better play on FanDuel, but that's why he's also higher owned. So like, correct, there's reasons to like him more on DraftKings. It's the old, you know what I mean? Like, he looks better in some ways on FanDuel, and other ways he looks better on DraftKings.
Yes, he does. Yep. Well, the like double or triple double that he'll put up with blocks one day, quadruple double potentially. Go ahead, super chat. Is that what you're going to say? Jazzy Faye plays $2. Tips for late swap on Sims, please. Thanks as always, fam. Very, very happy to let you know. One of the best things. So going into the late swap deal, and now we have the contest that you're in, and we'll upload. Yes, on DraftKings, we will upload the ownership directly. So you're able to do the late swap. I really enjoyed doing that yesterday on a 10-game slate. Ended up a little bit profitable on both sites for me. But DraftKings specifically, you're able to go to the contest, have it upload exactly what the ownership is. So you don't have to deal with the pool exposure. You know how many players are going to have that specific player in the lineups already, and that is done for you. So I would say the tips that I have for that is when you go to the favorite and the ROI in the corner, if you want to boost somebody, or if there's a late piece of news that you really, really need to take advantage of quick, there are no rules to being able to boost somebody ad nauseum last second. And that's going to happen eventually. But I would say for right now, I'd run it pretty unencumbered. I would just simply upload it, refresh it once starting lineups come out. Cause I guess Denver, potentially there's something weird. We could see like something, who's the 5th starter for Sacramento. I think it's pretty locked in, but there's always a chance that something different can pop up. Yeah, anything that you want to say as far as a late swap process in The Sims?
No, honestly, like, man, I just don't think it's as needed on slates like this because we don't have injury news. There might be some Denver shenanigans potentially, but the bigger thing for me is like, and I know you are big on late swapping, looking at performance and stuff. Because there's only 4 games and like they kind of are staggered start times, you're only going to have the results of like a few games by the time, or a few main players by the time the late game starts. And like, especially cheap guys like Carrington, he could have 10 fantasy points going into the last 4 minutes of the game. And if he gets 10 more in garbage time, all of a sudden he's optimal. Whereas if you're making changes thinking he was awful, you know what I mean? Like, I just think that it's not as needed on slates like this. Maybe that's to my detriment.
Yeah, I disagree with you, but I also appreciate the fact that there are ways to look at it from that perspective. But like for me, you get new information. You're going to get new information for the next 3 hours. So starting from now, 3 hours from now is when the next wave of games will start. And you're going to get new information. And I'm going to react very much to how the players who have done well or not well in my lineups have performed. I'm going to look, do I need to make an aggressive pivot? Do I need to make an aggressive change? I mean, my mind always goes back to, it was like Al Smizzle forever ago. Like it was nearly a decade ago at this point, which is insane. But I've been in the DFS streets forever. And one specific instance was Stephon Diggs. You like left $2,000 or $3,000 on the table before Stephon Diggs was Stephon Diggs and played him over I can't remember who it was that we had in Minnesota at the time who was like the no doubt wide receiver, but it was an incredible pivot. I think it was just Adam Thielen potentially that he played him over. And it ended up winning him $1 million because he just made a 1v1 pivot off of a guy who was popular. NFL's a little different. Basketball, we have more projectable numbers, and you don't want to leave anything like $700 on the table, I think is probably a little bit too much. But at the same time, you want to be always reacting to information, and that's going to happen. You're going to get more than half the slate that plays out. I think by the time it tips off in that 7 p.m. Pacific time, 10 p.m. Eastern time wave of games. So just be on high alert to how your lineups are doing. And if you need to make the requisite pivots, we'll be in the NBA DFS Discord. You guys can end up asking us questions over there in the Stokastic Discord. I'll probably jump in there a little bit later while I'm watching football because, you know, this is going to go one of two ways. But anywho, I suppose I have to do it. Jordan Klein, the lotion play of the night. Look at that. Who's going to put the ball in the basket, Matt Belman?
You tell me. It's your lotion play.
I hate it here. Luka Doncic is going to score a lot of points. Let's put it up on the screen again, Jordan. Just make it hurt. Go ahead. Put the lotion on the skin. Put the lotion on the skin. Who's going to score a lot of points tonight, Matt Belman?
I don't know, but that's not even how it goes, and I know you know how it goes.
Let's get out of here, everybody.
good.
I'm Eric Lindquist. Follow me at Eric Lindquist. Follow Matt Belman at Fantasy Tips Matt. Any final words for the people as we get out of here?
That was good. That was good.
Head over to playback.tv/Stokastic. We're going to have the games planned for you. We can hand out some VIPs before we get out of here. I'll make Jordan Klein do that as retribution. Thank you, Jordan Klein, producer Jordan Klein, best in the game. Name Jordan Klein. I'm glad he didn't make that graphic. I'm going to go ahead and hang my head in shame. Goodbye.